英国导演克里斯托弗·诺兰做客可凡倾听，红绳、保温杯以及热茶，诺兰大叔如何解读网红中年梗？
Well, they're very good. They keep my tea nice and warm. I like to drink tea all day. So.
二度做客可凡倾听，他有何深切的情感寄托
Most connects me to the film is the emotional connection you can find, maybe not even consciously, but on some level to your own life.
全方位揭秘敦刻尔克，你做好准备了吗？
I wanted to stay on the beach, stay in the plane, stay on the boat, always, and never let the audience out of that. Always keep them in that intense situation.
本期可凡倾听，海陆空三线开战，让我们走进诺兰的影像世界。克里斯托弗·诺兰，英国导演，当今好莱坞最炙手可热的导演之一。他曾执导《盗梦空间》《星际穿越》《蝙蝠侠》《黑暗骑士》三部曲、《致命魔术》等口碑爆棚的电影，几乎所有作品都取得了艺术和商业的双重成功。蝙蝠侠、黑暗骑士更是首部全球票房破10亿美元的超级英雄电影。诺兰电影有着强烈的个人风格，他善用创新的叙事方式来讲述故事。观众看他的电影，既觉得烧脑，又总能在恰当的时候获得解谜的乐趣。继2014年《星际穿越》后，克里斯托弗·诺兰打造的全新经典《敦刻尔克》在中国火爆上映。电影聚焦2战期间40万英法军队成功从敦刻尔克撤退的转折性事件。在诺兰来中国为电影造势之际，可凡倾听第一时间赴京专访。令人惊奇的是，诺兰大叔此行来华，按理说大家关注的焦点应该在电影才对，可谁知他的保温杯实在太抢眼，应了最近保温杯是老男人标配的网红梗。于是乎，我们的对话就从这只保温杯开始了。
Hi, Christopher. Nice to meet you again.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, some people pay attention to your cups.
My cups? Yeah, they're Japanese. They're from, the first one was a present from Ken Watanabe on Inception, because he saw that I drank tea all day and he used them, so he gave me a couple of them.
Recently there's a very famous joke about the cup for the middle-aged people. So some people talk about your cups.
Well, they're very good. They keep my tea nice and warm. I like to drink tea all day. So.
可凡倾听结缘克里斯托弗·诺兰，还得追溯到2014年。3年前，诺兰带着力作《星际穿越》，携主演马修·麦康纳和安妮·海瑟薇共同做客可凡倾听。在对话中，诺兰袒露心声，尽力做一名好父亲，但平衡工作与家庭的责任却并非易事。如此真情流露，瞬间融化了众多诺粉的心。
I try to be a good father, but I am torn between, your duty to your family and your love for your family, and then pursuing your other responsibilities, your other duties. In my case as a filmmaker, having to travel a lot for work, and having to come to China, leave my kids at home, for example. And for that reason, I think I very much related to Matthew's character, Cooper, his dilemma at the heart of the story. I mean, it's the most extreme version of that you can imagine. He's torn between staying to look after his children and make them feel safe, or going off to try and save all of humanity. I mean, it's this amazing version of that you could imagine, but I did relate to it on a family level, and I think the personal story at the heart of the film was very, very important.
I still remember you once said that for me, this movie is about being a father and how hard it is to leave your kids to go to work. So was the Interstellar was your way that expressing to your kids?
I think in a way, yes. I mean, I think as I have gotten older and as I've made more films, I find the thing that most connects me to the film is the emotional connection you can find, maybe not even consciously, but on some level to your own life. And for me, Interstellar was very much about being a father and about getting old, I think, or getting older. I won't claim to be old yet, but getting older and watching them grow. And when I look back at the film, I feel like it's very much about not being able to hang on to those moments as they get older, because they grow so fast.
You once told me that when you came back, we might be the same age. And today I'm the age you were when you left. So it might be a real good time for you to come back.
3年前，诺兰从相对论中得到了情感共鸣，于是造就了星际穿越。他将观众的视野引导至最遥远的太空。3年后，这位勇于创新的导演将其镜头对准一件他终其一生都会与之产生共鸣的真实事件——奇迹般的敦刻尔克大撤退。诺兰和太太托马斯第一次去敦刻尔克是在20世纪90年代中期，当时是和一个朋友乘着小帆船去的。由于风大浪急的海面和恶劣的天气，横穿海峡竟然花了19个小时。那次旅行使得他们对这一之前只读到过的重大事件有了全新的解读。
Your new movie Dunkirk will be shown in China. What do you want to say from this new movie to our audience?
I think for me, Dunkirk, first and foremost, is one of the great stories of all time. And I didn't understand why no one had made a film in modern times about this incredible event. And British people, we grow up with the story, we know it very well. But the rest of the world, very few people seem to know the story. Very few people in America seem to know the story. I don't think many people in China know the story. And it's this amazing tale of victory grasped from the jaws of defeat. It's not a conventional war film. It's this story of 400,000 men on a beach with the enemy closing in on all sides. And they're close enough to pretty much be able to see home across the water, but they can't get there. And they're faced with a choice between surrender or annihilation. And the fact that the story does not end in either surrender or annihilation is why I think it's one of the greatest stories in human history. And I'm very honored and I feel very privileged to be able to tell this story in film. And obviously for the people of China, I feel a great responsibility because for a lot of people it will be the first time they've heard of this story. And so what I hope that a Chinese audience will get from the film is what I think people in America got from the film as well, is an experience, an intense and relentless experience that's very suspenseful of what it might have been like to be involved in these incredible events.
Before you wrote the script, you traveled there. So what's your
Yes.
Experience like? Did it impact the way you wrote the script?
Yeah, I mean, I went there first for research purposes and to stand on that beach and understand how flat and wide it is. And this was the problem. The water's so shallow, they couldn't get the large naval destroyers in. And so they had to find a way to get all of these men, these hundreds of thousands of men off that beach. And so you stand there and you look at the waves and you look at the physicality of it, the ordinary, banal physicality, just the sand and the water and this structure that goes out into the sea called the mole, where they would wait to be picked up by boats. And then the German bombers, the dive bombers, the Stukas would come and drop their bombs right on them. And they had nowhere to go and nowhere to hide. And sort of being able to stand there and imagine what it must have been like, it stops it being history and it makes it feel very alive. And that inspired me to make the film in the way I made it, because I felt I want to give the audience that feeling. I want the audience to not view it as history, but to be in this story like it's a thriller, like it's a present tense thing that's going on that they're a part of. And so we shot the film on IMAX. We've formatted it for the giant screen. You know, we want people to get an experience in a movie theatre that they can't have at home or on their phones, you know, whatever. We want to overwhelm them with the sights and the sounds, the imagery of what it would be like to be in a Spitfire, you know, in a dogfight with a German plane above the battlefield, that kind of thing. And so a lot of the inspiration for the way in which we've told the story came from being able to experience standing on the beach, or I've crossed the channel on a small boat. I've made that journey to Dunkirk many years ago. It was very difficult and felt very dangerous without people dropping bombs on us. It felt dangerous because the water's so rough there. I want to give the audience that feeling. So it's not history, it's not an abstract, it's there in the moment, and they feel connected with it.
为了能够让不了解敦刻尔克大撤退这段历史的观众也可以轻松看懂电影，诺兰导演将情节简化，省去了前因后果的故事铺垫。 一开场就单刀直入，将观众带入战场，并通过大胆创新，以海陆空3个不同时空交织的故事结构来展现情节的紧迫感，推动剧情发展。
As we know, most of your films are famous for making people think, but the script of Dunkirk is very concise. It is only 76 pages of a 107 minute of a film, which is totally different from people's expectation for an epic film.
Yeah.
So, do you think a concise script is actually much more of a challenge for you?
I think it certainly was, yes. But I wanted a film that was... I wanted to try something that I hadn't seen before, which is, I call it a sort of cinema of experience. I wanted a film that was free of artifice. I wanted to push in that direction as far as possible, so that the normal conventions that I've been using in my films, and I've enjoyed using them, but I wanted to try, probably because this is real history in a way, so you don't have to sell the audience on the reality of it. You don't necessarily have to over-explain it. It's a real event, and it's a simple event. It's a very great story, but it's very, very simple, and the geography is very simple. It's a beach and water and air. It's land, sea, and air. And it's an escape story, and it's about getting home. It's very, very simple. And so I felt that what I wanted to do was strip away the dialogue, not have characters explain why you should care about them, which is what we usually do in films. We usually talk about, you know, their girlfriend back home or whatever, or their parents, or things they've done in the past, so that you care about them. I wanted to look at what for me is one of the most powerful cinematic languages, and that's the language of suspense. I'm thinking of Alfred Hitchcock or Clouseau in France. You know, I'm thinking of these filmmakers who understood that through purely visual means, through purely the physics of the situation, you could care about a character on screen because you're worried that, you know, can they cross this plank on this breakwater? Are they going to fall to their death? You don't want to be in that situation. You care about them, and you immediately... Hitchcock understood it better than anyone, and he would use imagery and physical devices to just make you align yourself with the characters instantly. And so I wanted to try a film, and for me it was a grand scale experiment, really. I wanted to try a film where you just do that, and so it should be relentless and suspenseful and very, very visual, very little talking. And so for me, I felt like it needed to be very, very short and stripped down. When I stood on that beach and I felt the sand on my boots and, you know, watched the waves come in and heard them and felt the wind on my face, it's like, those are little things. That's what's important. That's the landscape of this film, is the physics, the minutiae, the world around these characters that they're having to deal with. I wanted to make an intimate epic. So even though the scale is huge, and Dunkirk is the biggest story I know of, but I wanted to approach it from this very gritty, tactile kind of, what would it be like, what would it feel like to have the wind blowing in your eye, blowing the sand in your eyes, you know, that kind of feel. And so to me, it became all about sound and music and images, and not about people talking about it, not about constructing a story, but really just about a point of view, an immersion. I've referred to the film as virtual reality without the goggles. So it's just like an experience you have more than a story that you experience.
As you mentioned, it was a very interesting choice to have 3 different stories: land, air, and the sea. So what inspired that?
Well, what I've hoped to do with it is to maintain subjectivity. So you're always in the human story. You're always following a character just over their shoulder. And so I wanted to follow the characters who were on the beach. I wanted to follow a pilot in a Spitfire flying over. And I wanted to be on the boats coming over to help try and rescue these men. Those, to me, were the 3 most important aspects. And they run at different timescales, like I did in Inception. It's like each story strand has a different timescale, and at a point they come together. And what I wanted to do with this structure is maintain suspense, always stay in the moment with the characters. So it's sort of relentless. You're never given a rest. You're never jumping out of the story. And with the 3 different aspects and seeing events from 3 different points of view, I'm hoping that the audience, they then start to get an understanding of the bigger events, but without cutting to politicians or generals, you know, with maps. in rooms, pushing things around with sticks and, explaining the situation in the situation room. I wanted to stay on the beach, stay in the plane, stay on the boat, always, and never let the audience out of that. Always keep them in that intense situation.
可凡倾听下节预告：大胆启用小鲜肉演员，难道诺兰也要蹭热度？
What we really wanted to do with the casting of the film is not do the usual Hollywood thing where you say, I'm going to get a 40-year-old to play a young soldier. We fight our wars with kids. We send 18, 19-year-olds off to fight wars.
细数诺兰电影的技术原则，你能感受到他的用心良苦吗？
The IMAX film format is the highest resolution imaging format ever invented, by far. There's no digital or indeed film format that comes close to it.
广告很短，马上回来。在敦刻尔克中，克里斯托弗·诺兰一反传统，大胆启用了几位小鲜肉挑大梁担纲主演。诺兰找来的新人包括哈里斯·泰尔斯、菲扬·怀特海德、杰克·劳登和汤姆·格林卡尼这4位潜力无限的年轻演员。在视频特辑中，4位主演开了一场别致的圆桌会议，讲述自己拍片过程中的热血体验。
I think it was important to shoot on location to give it the film a perspective and to give us a perspective. I wasn't on the beach with the boys, but that must have been amazing.
I was coming out onto the beach and there was like 1,300 extras, all dressed in battle gear. There was Spitfires flying overhead, destroyers in the background. The beach was set dressed. And it was just so real. You can never really put yourself there, but that is, I think, the closest you can come to putting yourself in that situation. And the pure panic and terror.
So vulnerable. I mean, from every aspect as well. Sitting ducks on the beach, sitting ducks on the water, sitting ducks in the air. You're just so exposed. You've got nothing to shield you.
It's not, pretend there's an explosion happening over here. It's actually going on, and then I think, that just means you get natural reactions to stuff.
Yeah, any reactions you have are just a response to what's going on around you. It's just kind of honest.
The whole film has very little dialogue. Even the actor, Tom Green-Carney, has only 10 sentences in dialogue. So is it a more challenging for an actor?
I think in a way it is. What we really wanted to do with the casting of the film is not do the usual Hollywood thing where you say, I'm going to get a 40-year-old to play a young soldier. We fight our wars with kids. We send 18, 19-year-olds off to fight wars. And so I wanted to find actors of that age. So they're newcomers, they're fresh faces, and you don't know what to expect from them. And they haven't done films before. So Tom Green-Carney, Finn Whitehead, who plays Tommy, these guys, they had a huge responsibility and they didn't have many words to work with. So there wasn't much to rehearse or practice. But what we knew is we would be putting them as far as possible into the situation. We were going to put them in the real location. We were going to put them in the water, in the channel, swimming by a boat. We were going to put them on the beach and have explosions go off all around them. We were going to have them pick up a stretcher and have to run for half a mile across this beach in the wind and in the rain and whatever. And so I knew that they would have a lot to react to. A lot of the work would be done for them in a sense, to free them up to just live in the moment and be, and not try to not feel they had to project too much of a personality or thing. Just be themselves and be kids and be vulnerable. And so really the opening of the film, and you see Finn's face under fire, and I think you immediately care about him. You just want him to survive. You want him to do whatever he needs to do to survive, and you're going to follow him on that journey, and that's what was important.
对于许多影迷而言，克里斯托弗·诺兰的名字似乎就是高质量作品的保证。从1996年他拍摄个人首部故事片《追随》开始，到2017年的最新力作《敦刻尔克》，20年时光，10部影片都赢得了良好的口碑和票房。诺兰究竟有何独特的电影法则？诺兰电影法则1：坚持使用 IMAX 摄影技术。诺兰一直是 IMAX 摄影机的支持者，他从蝙蝠侠系列开始就使用 IMAX 摄影技术，在星际穿越中更是广泛的应用。在敦刻尔克中 ，IMAX 摄影机拍摄占比更是创诺兰作品纪录。在诺兰眼里 ，IMAX 的大画幅和高分辨率能表现出更丰富的画面细节，强势震撼。
Dunkirk uses IMAX camera as much as possible. As we know, you are keen on using IMAX technology. This time you try to strap the IMAX camera on the replica Spitfire and land it in English channel. So why do you prefer IMAX technology?
Well, the IMAX film format is the highest resolution imaging format ever invented, by far. There's no digital or indeed film format that comes close to it. It's a massive negative. It's a huge image. And so the resolution is very sharp. The color reproduction is amazing. And so if you shoot on this format, you're able to really create an image that has a very immersive effect without using 3D or without using any particular gimmickry. I mean, you're really able to make the audience feel that they know what everything would feel like and smell like. It's a very tactile sense. And so we've tried to use it as much as possible. The great thing about shooting on IMAX film is if you acquire your imagery on this incredible negative, you can then translate your film to any digital format and it will look better, it will look fantastic. And so all the different presentations of the film, from our 70mm film prints, down to our, DCPs, our 2K digital presentations, whatever, they all really look fantastic because of that original photography.
走进经典艺术人文频道。